against that. The other topic they touched on was payment, athlete payment. I think he said he made $1 million. He was making $1 million per year. They really drilled down on him. This was a good section because like, hey, how much you make? And then he answered, "Oh, wait, how much did you make?" Because you're comparing themselves. You got NFL players there, right? So they're very public about their salaries. And again, I don't know how definitive the number was, but he basically, I don't know if he ballparked. He said a million. He was making $1 million a year. And you don't know at what stage in his career he's talking about, but that was before endorsements. That was just, I'm assuming that's appearance fees, prize money. I don't even, I don't, maybe he's talking about that's just his base money and not bonuses. But at minimum, he was saying it was $1 million a year.
Yeah, and then I think the main headline that came out that kind of hit up the Twitter conversation is he said that there should be a union, a track and field athlete union. And okay, hear me out. Yes, that would be great. But who is the union bargaining with? If you can tell me who the union is bargaining with, then it makes sense. But who is on the other side of an athlete union? Is it World Athletics? Because that doesn't make any sense. Because
Mhm.
what does World Athletics have to do with the random Stanford meet that you ran at? There's nothing to do with
Mhm,
that.
mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is it USATF? Okay, then what does USATF have to do with uh, pen relays? USATF isn't involved with pen relays at all. Like, we don't have a structure that a union would be able to bargain with because the governing bodies aren't the ones who pay the athletes. It's the sponsors. So if you're going to have a union, you're going to have a union against Nike's marketing company, against
Mhm, mhm.
New Balance's shoe deal contracts. Like
Right.
the you can't just say the word union and then like boom, it works. We're good. Now we're going to get all the money we need and healthcare and all that stuff. Unions work in professional sports like the NBA, the NFL because the revenue of those sports is structured between the 30 owners and the
Mhm,
1,500 athletes.
mhm.
Where are the 30 owners in track and field? There aren't. There's no other side of the sport because let me tell you, a lot of meet directors lose money. They act like they make money. They don't. They lose money. A lot, the World Athletics, they're just trying to break even a lot of times when they struggle to get a full on sponsorship for their
Yeah.
world championships. These athletes think track and field is just a money producing superpower the way the NFL and MLB and NBA are. And it's just not that way. Like you look at the commercials you see on TV during a track meet and look at the commercials you see on TV during a football game. And you can tell, okay, clearly football is getting paid a lot more for their commercials than track and field. When you see a
Mhm.
random track and field commercial, you're like, that's a weird commercial to see on TV. It's like, yeah, because no one wanted to buy that time slot. And that's just the reality of the sport. And I just think this whole idea of like, oh, we get a union. And again, I would love it for it to work out that way. I would love it for the athletes to be able to negotiate with whatever this entity is. But first, you have to create this entity to
Yeah, yeah,
negotiate
yeah.
against. And we don't have that
Well,
entity.
the
It doesn't
point that he
exist.
made the point that he ma yeah, I agree with what you're saying. The point that he made that introed that segment, he was saying how he was at the London Olympics and the 100 was about to start and all these NBA players came in to watch the 100 and the whole world focuses on this one event every 4 years for 9 seconds and like how do we capture that? Because everybody's attention and interest is on it, but then it's fleeting. But the reason why it's a problem is self-evident in the question, which is every 4 years. That's the problem. Is it's only every 4 years. And the people, right, that are involved in that are ever changing. You have a Bolt, right? You have an Allison Felix. You have people who are mainstays and become popular, but it's hard to sustain a sport where that interest level that he's talking about although it is high, it's only high once every 4 years. And then you get into this other discussion where is track one sport or is track 30, 40 different sports, cut up into one? And you're right.
And you talk
Even other individual sports, such as tennis or golf, there is that ability to have some back and forth because there is a main tour. You could see this perhaps happening with major marathons because there's the world marathon majors. But even still, how are the athletes getting the majority of their money? Those individual shoe contracts.
yeah. And I just think that you go talk about problems every 4 years. Also, the problem, I've said this on this podcast many times, or just in my time at FloTrack, our sport will never be able to financially be a revenue driver for the athletes until they change what the pinnacle of our sport is. If the pinnacle of our sport is an event that you can't make money off of because it's an amateur event and the sponsorships are all separate, aka the Olympics. When you talk to an NBA basketball player, what's the pinnacle of their sport? It's winning an NBA title. When you
Mhm.
talk to a golfer, what's the pinnacle of their sport? It's winning a Masters, a US Open, or British Open. None of them are going to say it's winning an Olympic title because their financial structure around their sport is not centered around Olympics. That's the main problem. We center our sport around an event, the Olympics, which limits the ability for these athletes to. I mean, we see it, with the whole like once you become an Olympian, you're just covered in Nike and it's done. Like, sorry, New Balance, you can't do it anymore. Like, so why would we need to? I mean, no one's going to want to do it because we love it. We love representing your country. It's like great, and I get it. The Olympics are awesome, and there's a reason why LeBron James still does the Olympics. Because it is a great feeling and it's a great thing for our society to have this run for your country. But at the end of the day, the athletes who are getting paid the most are the athletes whose Super Bowl is not the
Mhm.
Olympics. And you look at that's the issue. I mean, if we were able to some way, I don't know how, to flip track and field upside down, where the Olympics was the icing and not the cake. And if you were able to do that, and the cake was actually a structured four major sport, then things might start happening. But until that, if we keep on saying the only thing that matters is every 4 years, it's going to be hard to create a structure around that. I mean, yeah. So that's why it's always going to be an individual case by case basis. And that's why the only way to make money in our sport is on an individual case by case basis where you individually get your own sponsorship deal. You individually negotiate your own appearance fee. You individually win a race. It's,
Mhm.
it's until that you have to take that. Yeah, until you have a structure, it's always going to be individual. So, and that's why there are people who make a lot of money individually. I'm sure Sydney's doing well, Christian Coleman's doing well, Gatlin clearly was doing well, but right now it's only going
Mhm.
to be the ones who are at the very tippy top who are going to get paid, and everyone else who's trying to make it, they're doing it out of charity until they make it to the big moment. And they have to also make it to the big moment in an important event. Because if you make it to the big moment in the race walk, it's not going to be the
Mhm.
same as making it to the big moment in the 100-meter dash.
All right, let's move on. We got a couple other stories I want to get to before we preview the Doha Diamond League and